Hey, so this one's going to be part vlog, part tutorial, because it's kind of a rough draft for a more serious tutorial. There's going to be hiccups, and there's going to be a lot of editing I need to do. Oh, sorry, that's probably blinding. A lot of editing that I need to do to make a proper tutorial, and I need to think about even the structure of the tutorial, yada, yada, yada. So it's going to be sort of casual here, part vlog here. Look at all these things I've got. Getting to where, it's been more than a month now, maybe a month and a half that I've been doing stuff. And specifically, we're going to look at how to make just a sort of I'll call it a first-person shooting game, but technically it's third person. But, yeah, so let's see here. This is my farthest developed one, but I'm also going to, hold on. So I'm going to start from scratch, basically. Scratch in parentheses, because, see, as a programmer, you should not start from scratch when you don't have to. So we call it reinventing the wheel. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. It's something it's a sort of pitfall that programmers sometimes fall into. Like, you put in a ton of work at something that you want, and then you realize there's a better version of it available for free. So, to the extent that you learned a bunch of stuff, that wasn't a waste of time, but after your first couple of years as a programmer, you need to stop wasting your time. So, so the first thing here is that there's these, I'll call them, templates. They're called templates. And if you're learning how to make things in Roblox Studio, you should go through all of these. It doesn't have to be all in one day. Split it up and play around with them and look at what is already here for you that you can start playing with. So, for example, it's different advice if you've already been doing things for a couple of years. But, you don't want to reinvent the wheel if there's something that you can already build off of. I would go with that. And I want to give another piece of advice that, as a noob here, that most people only really care about how fun your game is. Most people do not care how much work it took to make your game. Oh, there's this racing thing? I think that's new. Interesting. That's new, right? I'm gonna have to check that out. Is there an order here? I'd be interested in kind of the history of how these were developed. Because Mansion of Wonder seems more recent. Whereas, like, Capture the Line Runner seems older to me. But anyway, probably 95% or more players only care about how fun your game is. And something I've noticed is, like, I'll be building off of one of these templates, and some people, who have experience developing, at least according to them, are not familiar with these templates sometimes. Sometimes people are not aware that I'm building off of a template, and they act like I built all of this stuff from scratch. And I think that a lot of those individuals have received the advice to build everything yourself. And so if your objective is just to learn stuff, that's okay advice. Like, I would sometimes do that, try to build everything yourself from scratch. And in programming in general, sometimes, you follow tutorials, but sometimes you just try to do things yourself. But as time progresses, as you become a real programmer, you avoid reinventing the wheel. You'll feel very silly if you spend an enormous amount of time building something when something exists for free that's better. Okay. So you need to familiarize yourself over time with these. And I admit I haven't gone into all of them yet. But by the time I reach the 3-month mark, I'm sure I will have. And I'd spent some time working on some shooting games that are similar in spirit to this one, and let me double check that the mouse is coming up here. I'm pretty sure it is, but I realized that it's not. Okay, what? I just set that yesterday, like reset or something. Anyway, I was building something very similar in spirit to this, and I was trying to get kills to work, and kind of struggling because I'm relatively new, and because the kill counter doesn't work. And then I realized, oh wait, there's this thing. I bet they have it in there working already. And sure enough, it's broken in this game. Also, capture the flag I was playing around with yesterday a bit, and it mainly works, but at one point it passed. There was a serious bug where it passed the time for the round, and then it didn't restart the new game. And so that would mean that basically the game becomes completely boring and everyone's just going to leave. So that would be like a game-killing bug right there that you have to watch out for. So I have to look through the code there and see how I can fix it, because I do want to build off of some of this stuff too. Okay, so let's look in here. And I'm going to fix this so that the kills work, okay? And at least I don't, not necessarily for like the team total number of kills. I'm just going to do a free-for-all, focus on free-for-all, and yeah, right now in this, the number of kills does not work. You can test it with your friends, or do a team, set up 2 devices and do a team test. It just doesn't count the kills. So that's a big problem. That's very silly. That it's mind-blowing to me that Roblox has this this starting template that is kind of broken that way. And does anyone know if it used to work correctly? I don't know. Okay, and so that's one thing I'm going to fix. I'm also going to add in like spawning weapons. I think by default here you just start with a rocket launcher, I think. We can give it a go and check that. I just wanted to put this over here. Okay. And so I want more weapons that spawn, and let's take a look at, let's see, put this over here. Let's take a look at my game as it is right now. And I'll show you kind of what I have for the weapons. And I'm doing a couple things for the weapons. It's kind of inconsistent. I need to improve it, or kind of fix it, I guess. But it's working well enough for right now. So I have some premium weapons where you have to pay Robux for. And so here's a rocket launcher. Pretty simple. Just pick it up. Notice that I'm not picking up like multiple of them. So that's good. And that's very simple, and I'm just going to kind of go with that style. If I have time today, I will show how to make sort of premium weapons, which you could do a game pass or you could do a developer item. I've done it for both. Right now I have them as developer items, which means that it's just a one-time purchase thing. Okay, and let's see. Yeah, there was another weapon, an assault rifle, but I got rid of it momentarily. I'm going to bring it back into the game somewhere. And there's a sniper rifle elsewhere. But here there's a crossbow. So, oh yeah, and I added the sound when you equip it. Anyway, I mean, it's fairly straightforward. Let me just show one more. Okay, we have to actually go up here, which I think, is this hard for mobile users to climb up? I'm not sure. So another thing is, like, you really need to think about if you're targeting mobile users or computer users or what. But so there's a sniper rifle. Now this is kind of built the same way as the other premium items, but this is not premium right now. I'm debating, yeah, We'll see what I do. I don't want the sniper rifle to be totally premium. I don't think. But anyway. So we're going to add that, and we're going to make the kills work. And actually the kills, there are 1 or 2 bugs with the kills right now. For example, I got a kill from that, which is an easy fix. I just haven't gotten to it. In fact, I might fix it today in real time. Okay, so let's start with the kills. What you need to do is to tag. Well, let's see. I'll show you in the code here. So in weapon system, and somewhere is. So what I can do is I'll do Control-Shift-F, and that's not working. Oh, you know what? It came up, but it came up it came up behind here. That happens sometimes, I think. Anyway, if it doesn't come up with the Control-Shift-F, you can click here. And I want to search for TakeDamage function. Okay, and as you can see, in this game, it's only in 4 places. So, actually, it looks like I have. It looks like so. If you bring up a script, you can right-click and say Show in Explorer. Yeah, I don't need this weapon system here for the rocket launcher. So I have a weapon system is down here. So I'm going to delete that. I think that should be fine. I'll test it later. But basically the idea is you have one of these weapon systems folders and you keep it, I think server script service is, yeah, that's what they do here. So they already have this set up like this. Now, these weapons are available in the toolbox. If you click on, what I'll do is you usually go here and then just click on Roblox. And, or you can search here, but like they've got a bunch of weapons in here. They've got the submachine gun, sniper rifle, shotgun, auto rifle. If you put a lot of shotguns in the game, I think it's kind of laggy when you get a lot of bullets going. So I've kind of, that's why I made it a premium item. But I might be able to kind of fix that if I pay attention to how many bullets are being shot. I think I might have increased it, which may cause it to be a bit laggy when there's a lot of people with a shotgun. So yeah, just experiment with that, see if it's not, if it might create a lot of lag when there's a lot of players in there. This is basically an assault rifle, rocket launcher. They have a paintball gun. I'll have to try that. Of course, there's tons of things worth playing around with in here. There's a grenade launcher, which I'll probably bring into my game. Oh yeah, there's a railgun. I have a railgun in my game, which I forgot to show you. And the crossbow. And anyway, but you can type things here as well, like the rocket launcher and all that. But all of these models have this weapon system folder tucked in the model. So if I add, like let's add a crossbow. Where was that? Crossbow? Does this thing, I think this thing moves. I'm just gonna throw that in there, see what it does. But anyway, the crossbow, so I dragged that in here. Now I'm pretty sure these 3 versions are just different skins, different colors, and yeah, skins. So I'm just gonna remove 2 of them. And I mean, if you just leave it here, for one thing, it won't respawn, right? Also, so if you anchor it, I think you sometimes get this weird behavior. I don't know, but anyway, this weapon system here doesn't really belong here. And yeah, based on what they did here with this template, you know, they have the weapon system here in the server scripts service, and they have the rocket launcher tool in the starter pack here with no weapon system folder. But if I drag the rocket launcher in from here, the weapon system will be tucked in the tool like it is here. And so I have a bit of a rant I want to rant, and I'll put some chapters in the description in case you want to skip. But the thing is that you know, put a README or something. You know, there's no README, and yeah, there's no README anywhere. And just explain these basic things, or even if you had like weapon system space put in server script service, like that would be a step up, okay? Even though that title, the reason they're not doing something like that is maybe that the title looks aesthetically displeasing or something, like ew or something. But what's better than all of that is have a README in here where you explain these basic things, like that you should move this somewhere else, for example, that you really only need one of these per game, right? We don't need this weapon system folder for every tool, because there's a lot of it doesn't make sense. There'll be all kinds of like, for example, there's a shoulder camera script in here that tells how the camera works. It wouldn't make sense to have this for every tool, unless you, maybe if you wanted to make custom changes. But even there, I mean, like libraries, there's a parabola script. You don't need this in everything, every tool, right? It's yeah. So have a README that explains that. You know, people aren't born knowing what you're thinking, okay? And also, in here, for example, there's stuff about walk speed, and this is just terrible. I mean, it's not necessarily terrible that you... Yeah, it's terrible. There's something deeply wrong here. At least there are some comments. Okay, good. But first of all, this kind of configuration information should be at the top of a file. It should be up here, and so it's clear when you open this up. Oh, these are sort of my parameters that I might want to easily change, or put it in this configuration thing. That would actually be good. We're talking about walk speed. It's bad enough that it's here. Like, normally I change the walk speed by going to game settings. Now I need to save this in order to do that first. So let's save to Roblox as, and let's I'll just call it tutorial FPS, even though it's not really FPS, and save. Okay, and yes. Oh, it's gonna reload it. Okay. Yes. Sorry, it's taking a bit of time there. So you can see my NPC has a TakeDamage method call. So when I say method call, actually that's, yeah. When people talk about methods, methods are just functions that are attached to some class. Now, TakeDamage is really it's a script from Roblox. Like, let's look at the documentation for TakeDamage in a second here. But okay, so normally, oh my god, oh, I have to click on the game, and then we'll go File, Game Settings, and World. Here I set the walk speed. So I noticed that there's some really seemingly buggy behavior with the walk speed with setting that, and so I realized that I narrowed down the problem to those weapons, and I went through all the code looking for something related to walk speed, you know, because there's a bunch of code here. There's all these libraries. There's, let's see, server weapon script. There's weapon system. This is almost 500 lines. There's a lot of code to go through. And, oh, in the camera, you're setting walk speed. That is so bad. Just do anything but that. Number one. And number two, document it. Put a README there where you explain incredibly stupid things you did. Like, any programmer with experience has done stupid things, okay? So for some reason you decided that in the camera settings you have to set the walk speed. Okay, probably really dumb, but if you're gonna do that, put it in a README. I wasn't born, thinking, oh, you're messing with the walk speed. I better go and check the camera. This has to do with it has to do with the fact that there's zooming, right? Like with the sniper rifle. Actually, with all the weapons, you can kind of zoom in a little bit. So to show that, in case you haven't seen it. And it's basically an ADS. What is that? Arm down sights kind of thing. But yeah, because they're doing zoom, and then they want for example, zoom walk speed. They want your walk speed to change based on zoom. Okay. But this would be better probably in the configuration file. And so we have so the game script is separate. That's not to do with the weapon system. Configuration. Okay, was I looking at a different configuration file? Where's the configuration file? Is this it for configuration? So that's weird. Oh, but each tool has its own configuration. Okay. I don't know. Like I said, anything but this. And if you're gonna do this, document it in a frickin' README, please. Okay, but maybe they did so many similar things. If I have more experience with this code, similar like bad practices that they gave up on making a README, but it's terrible. There's no README. There's no documentation. Now, if somebody knows, maybe on Roblox.com there's a tutorial. Maybe this is all connected with some tutorial. Let me know. I'll maybe search around for it if I remember to do so. I mean, that's okay, but like, people are dragging these things in from the toolbox. And you're not born knowing that you need to drag this weapon system out somewhere else from the tool. So yeah, I guess that's the end of my rant. It's just really strange to me. Like if you had a couple of years programming and you made that kind of mistake, it's like, it's very understandable. A little slap on the wrist. Come on, you're better than that. Document your code a bit, like put a README, etc. But whoever made this weapon system clearly has a fair amount of experience. So it's sort of baffling to me. I don't get it. All right. End of rant. Okay, so where was I? Let's look at this TakeDamage script. I've got this weird NPC. And I was just going to show the aim down sights real quick, though I think most people are familiar with that. It's just like when I right click, it does like that. That is a zoom in this case, but yeah, so I guess it does zoom a bit. So even though it's not a sniper rifle, you have some zoom, and you may want to change the walk speed when you do that. Okay. Understandable, but document it, please. Okay. And so, well, that's interesting. I had one more TakeDamage. Let's check that. There's one more TakeDamage function when it was running. Okay. I guess that's just from the replicated storage. So, here to, this is in the SMG. Okay, probably don't need that. I have a bit of duplicate stuff. So let's find this. I can right click on Show and Explorer. Yeah, we have a weapon system here with the SMG. Don't need that because I have the weapon system here. Okay, so now we have take damage in two different places. In our weapon system and the NPC, which we're not going to cover the NPC, although it's just dragged in from a toolbox. This guy is, if you look for backdoors, or backrooms, excuse me, backrooms, he comes up. But, so this take damage is very crucial. This is a function where we actually damage something, right? Like when we shoot something, that's where the damage occurs. And so here again, what happened to the find replace all? Whatever, I'll click on it a couple times. Okay. And take damage. So you can see I forgot to remove the weapon system from the crossbow. Even after all that chatting about it. And so it's in just one place for the weapon system. Cool. And here it is. And so I was going through the code and I found this, and you know, sometimes you find a function and it's somewhere else, like this one, for example, is if I search the whole project, we can find the definition of the function somewhere else. But in this case, with take damage, when I search for it, you see this is not the declaration or definition of the function. By the way, a declaration in programming is where you say something exists. Like, for example, local x. I've just declared a variable. I'm just saying this is a variable that exists, and the program will allocate a little space in memory for that. Similar thing with a function. So you can just declare. I don't know how for programming with Roblox if it makes sense to just declare a function. Never really needed to. Some people, the way they do code is that they would declare all their functions at the top, which is not what we're doing here. And anyway, but a definition, so let's see. A definition of a function is what describes what everything actually does, like this, for example. Right, so here we're calling a function and we're not defining it. But here we are defining it. This is the definition of the function. Why is this so cramped? Give me more space. Why does it do that? Like it, there we go. But it's ugh. So local humanity goes blah 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 function Roblox dot. Okay, this looks like the. Oh, okay. Yeah, these are just different functions. Here's a declaration of the get humanoid function in. I would describe this as a class, but normally, but weapon system here is it's not a class, but it's a table. Okay, but you can fill the table with, you can put functions in the table, so it's kind of acting like a class in that sense. However, yeah, that's probably not the correct language to describe it with. So anyway, so point is, I find this take damage function, and I'm like, oh yay, there's where the damage stuff is occurring. And I see that it's only here, and this is not a definition. It's not telling me what the function does. And this is the only place where it exists in the code, and it's being called, right? This is a function call, and meaning that it's being executed. And we're passing in this amount into the function. That is an argument. And so amount is being passed in first to here and then to here. And this TakeDamage function apparently belongs to this target instance. And so what is target? That's something we're going to want to think about. If I search for target, it's 13 different places just here alone. But yeah, let's have a look-see a bit. Okay, but it's a parameter to this function, so doesn't, yeah, it's just a parameter to this function in this scope anyway. Okay, and so that's why part of why they're checking to see that it's a humanoid, and because maybe somebody adding some code might accidentally put something in here that's not a humanoid. Okay, and we don't want to think about damage with anything else. We don't like random game objects, parts, or anything. Okay, so they do that check. All right, so anyway, so this TakeDamage method or function is not defined anywhere in this project, right? So kind of that should go, when you find that, something like that, you should go ding, 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 ding. This is basically a sort of a built-in function. This is something that Roblox has made. It's not here. So I need to learn about that. So type Roblox TakeDamage. Here's the documentation. And so it looks like it's part of this humanoid class. I'm calling it a class. I think that's okay, but yeah, this is when they're in classes. And okay, so let's go back to where it was. Well, it's not showing me. There it goes. Okay, so we have this takedown. So what is TakeDamage? So void. Because I have experience, this tells me it's probably a function here, but hold on. So these, when it says void here, this is referring to what it returns. And it just means that it returns nothing. So yeah, this function, right? So you'll hear people like me sometimes referring to these as methods. A method, again, is just a function that belongs to some class. So the class here is the humanoid class. And see, it says methods, so. So this function lowers the humanoid.health of the humanoid by the, so what is the humanoid? So is it, well, it's whatever humanoid this belongs to. So we see here target is going to be a humanoid because we checked for that. Then when we call the TakeDamage method for that target, then it will call the function for that specific instant, for that specific instantiation of the humanoid class. So the class is sort of like, it's hard talking about these things because I need to avoid the word like model because that already means something. So, and I need to avoid the word template maybe, or but a class is like a template. And then like a factory almost, and we can create lots of instances of those, of the class. And there I have to be careful too, because the word instance is already taken up as, so instance here is like the mother class in a way. I'm not sure if it's going to come up here. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, instance. Yeah, it is here. So let's take a look. See, instance is the base class for all classes in the Roblox class hierarchy. Yeah, so it's kind of like the, if you study different game engines and stuff, there's usually something that's some class that's called like game object or something, or entity, or something very general. And that's this what we have here. We have just it's just a class that is meant to be extremely general. It's kind of like the top of the hierarchy. You can imagine there's like this tree of classes that inherit properties from other classes, and we need something at the top, and in this case it's the instance class, and everything, all the other classes inherit from that. So we have some generic things that will be available in every kind of class. So, for example, humanoid. Humanoid is a particularly large class. Most of them aren't this big, but you can go all the way down, and you can. Well, it says events inherited from instance, because instance is sort of the top level class that everything inherits from. All of these different classes, all of the objects, okay, you can instantiate a class. So you create what we call an object, which is an instance of the class. So I don't like that they use the word instance, because just talking about object-oriented programming in general, as I'm doing now, I use the word instance, but I'm not. The way I just used it, I'm not referring to the Roblox instance. I'm just, generally speaking, about object-oriented programming, we use classes as sort of almost like a template, although that means something else in programming too. But it's sort of like a template, and then we instantiate instances of the class, which we call objects. Okay. So I know some of the language is a bit confusing if people are new to it. But yeah, so we have events inherited from instance. And so I'm still kind of learning about it, but it seems like events. So they say somewhere here. So actually, let's open this up, this overview. So the documentation, it's good as you're learning to sometimes come back here and just spend some time studying this a bit, because, well, it's good to have sort of project-based learning where you're trying to do something and you're learning that way. You're not going to learn everything in the documentation in that manner, just from experience and trial and error and that kind of stuff, like being faced with problems and then trying to find the solution. So it's good to sometimes come back to the documentation, and here this is like the top of it, and they're indicating to us that this is sort of the top level. We have classes, we have data types. So let's look at the data types. You've got, that's a lot, but let's see. There's something more basic where it says like Boolean, for example. Boolean's not here. So these are data types that are unique to the Roblox engine. So I think somewhere else we're going to see data types that are connected with the language, or I guess those are just types, not necessarily data types. But we'll see. Okay, enums. Enums are sort of like labels. Like, for example, you don't need to be scared of them. They're like labels. So like if you were doing some stuff with color and you wanted to be able to use words like red, magenta, indigo, gold, silver, and you had those words, instead of red would just would be filled in with like 1.0, like this kind of thing, because we usually represent color as RGB, and so this kind of thing. Okay, these are basically enums. This is kind of the sort of mental model I have for enums, that you're creating labels that will map to something. Although, a lot of times it's just a single number. They just get mapped. You have a list of enums and they all get mapped to some number, and it doesn't really matter what the number is. It's just that you don't want to think about it. You want the computer program and the compiler and all that to sort of just to keep these things separate, if that makes sense. So it's just about sort of creating labels. But sometimes you'll find that a programming language has an enum class that has some bells and whistles and methods and stuff like that. So here it says enums are groups of constants that define preset values that you can use with other APIs. Enums are a group of constants. Okay. So let's see if we can find something that sounds simple-ish. Font. The font enum is used in this, so they're kind of labels. See? It has a name corresponding to some value, and we don't really care what the value is, but the computer thinks in everything can be boiled down to numbers, so this is how it does things. Rather than storing a string, for example, for Garamond, what is that? That's 8 letters. So if you were to store this in memory as a string, you would normally take 8 bytes. That's for ASCII, but actually with UTF-8, which allows for more languages, it could be more than 1 byte per letter. But that's unnecessary. We can store, like, even just have 8 bytes for storing this as a label is a waste of space. So that's why it just sort of maps all these labels to numbers so that each label is just 1 byte of information. Okay. So anywhere you click, hopefully it's going to have some kind of similar looking thing where you have a bunch of items. You have a bunch of labels that map to certain values. Okay. Alrighty. So let's go back to engine. So this is, oh, okay. They have a platform overview. Again, I need to read more of this stuff. There could be little bits of information that I didn't know about. And we have a Roblox Studio. Okay. Has a bunch of stuff. Somewhere there's going to be engine, right? So where was engine? I don't know. But let's get back to where we were before. Engine. Huh. Engine/reference. Okay. So actually, how do I get there from this previous thing? Where's reference in here? I don't know. But what I'll do... Oh, how about overview? No. I do want to just go over this at some point in my own time, but okay. Somehow you can get here. It's at the top, I guess. Just click on this tab. Guides is this stuff. There's tutorials. So, again, might learn some interesting, useful information by going through this. So I wanna go through those. But here we have reference. This is where you're gonna have all the dirty details that we maybe don't normally want to think about, to be honest. But it's a good practice if whatever you're studying as a programmer. Occasionally spend some time just studying the documentation, even though sometimes it's often 1,000 or 2,000 pages. But yeah, you learn stuff by sort of perusing, going through it a bit. Okay, so we have globals. Globals are functions or properties that you can use in any script. Let's have a look-see. Globals, let's have a look at the Roblox globals. Things like elapsed time. It requires something used for module scripts. Time. So it makes sense that stuff like time is global. And looks like there's not too many of these, so And we have Lua globals, like assert. And how many of these do we have? It's not too bad, but there's a decent amount of stuff to go through. Okay, then we had libraries. Let's see the libraries. Oh yeah, so for example, math library and a string library for maybe you want to sort a string. Okay, so this is good. It's just good to know, have this overall general information. It's very important. Okay, and now you're going to spend a lot of time studying classes because like globals and yeah, you're going to spend a lot of time studying classes. And it's important to know that sort of the mother class here was this instance class. And it's a bit long, but it's, you know, every class is going to inherit all of this stuff, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if you can specifically like remove certain things from a class as you inherit from it. But yeah, it takes a bit of time, and I'm not going to go through it too much more here today, but it's good to scroll through this sometimes, and especially this instance class, very important. So we have now the humanoid class. So other important classes are like the player class and the character class. So when somebody joins a game, it creates a player class, and each time they die and respawn, a character class gets destroyed and then restarted. So each time they live, that's a new character instance, I should say. Not a new class, but a new instance. Again, I wish they didn't use the word instance. Just use like game object. I think that's the same as Unity, so maybe they didn't want to call it game object, but whatever. Okay, so somewhere in here is TakeDamage. Down in here. So here are properties. These just, so for example, health, it's good to know. It's just a number. Humanoid.health. So humanoid.jump. If true, the humanoid jumps. Okay, good to know. So we can make someone jump just by saying humanoid.jump equals true, and they'll jump. It's good to know because normally you'd think that might be a method similar to TakeDamage, but it's just a property. It's just a Boolean that we set equal to something. That's interesting. We have things like walk speed and, oh, okay, I didn't know sit. That's interesting. Sit is a Boolean that indicates whether the humanoid is currently sitting. So maybe it's really easy to make them sit on things. I don't know. All right, and now to TakeDamage. So it's void, so that means it returns nothing. That's why it says here, returns void, returns nothing. And as a parameter is what you pass into a function, the information that you give the function to work with. So just one parameter, which is a number that we're calling amount. Okay, so note that if it is not protected by a force field. So if you want to affect a player's health even though they have a force field, then you can do it by saying like humanoid.health. You'll do like whatever their humanoid is, .health minus equals 5, for instance, will decrease their health by 5. This minus equals is the same as doing this minus 5. Same thing. Yes. Minus equals 5. If you did plus equals, that's adding 5. So you can do that to damage someone even if they have a force field. But this will check if they have a force field. This function accepts negative values for the amount. Oh, that's interesting. That will increase their health. I didn't know that. However, this will only have an effect if no force field is present. So I'm curious how to set max health. Oh, that's right there, max health. Okay, good. As a property. Okay. So property is just going to be a variable that sits inside of the instance of a class. Okay. And so let's see. Meets blah, blah, blah. The force field share. What is this? How do force fields protect against? Okay. This is getting a little detailed. I don't know if we care to go into that much detail. Actually, I'm kind of interested in it. Let's figure out what's going on here. A humanoid is considered protected by a force field if a force field meets one of the following criteria. The force field shares the same dot parent as the humanoid. The force field is parented to the okay. Or the force field is parented to an ancestor of the humanoid other than the workspace. So I get these two. What is this about? I don't know. Maybe somebody can explain that in the comments. To do damage to a humanoid, I don't understand why you'd have. It's parented to the ancestor. Oh, okay. So any ancestor other than the workspace. Oh, okay. So if you have the human, if you have even their character, because a parent of the humanoid is character. So let's also show somewhere in here is character. It's important information. Of course, you can just search up here, but whatever. Where's character? Character mesh. Huh. Am I in the wrong? It says classes. Let's look character. Oh, it's in a separate section. I don't understand why. Is it not? Is there not a class called character? I'm confused. So let's look at the class for player. I think that will answer our question. Player. So it's a type of class. Okay. A player object is a client that is currently connected. Blah blah blah. Let's search in here for character. So character. I see. So character is actually just a model, and it's basically, so it's a property. So it's not a different class. The class is that it's a model, and it's being added as a property. And so it says the character property contains a reference to a model. So it's a little bit confusing, but in programming in general, and it doesn't really come up here with Roblox stuff, but there's something called a pointer. And so this is just a pointer to an instance of the model class. And so when they say that it contains so it's a reference, they're basically saying under the hood there's a pointer pointing to some instance of this humanoid class, a humanoid object, okay? Or sorry, a model object rather. And that model contains a humanoid. Okay. Well, I'm going to look into this more. So it's really, when I was thinking of character, it's really model actually. So that's interesting. So I need to read through this more. And player and humanoid. Okay. Anyway, so there's a lot of details to look at, but I think this is fairly straightforward, right? We're just damaging the person in the game. A humanoid, which is attached to a humanoid which is attached to instantiation of the model class, which is probably attached to the player. I don't know. So all those implementation details are a little confusing, and there's a bit to learn there, but okay. But we don't need to know all the details just to use this function, right? But it is good to sometimes dig in a bit and learn some more stuff. However, the first, for people who are new to all this stuff and new to programming, the first most important lesson that I want you to remember is that when you see this kind of function, when you want to learn more about a function, the first thing you do is to search the whole project for it. And sometimes you'll find that it's nowhere else in the project. So you see it. Yeah, and so typically normally you'll see it's in at least two places. It's at least being defined, so that tells us what the function does. And secondly, it's at least being called. If it's never been called and it's only being defined, then you can just remove it without losing anything. But you might see that kind of stuff that's just there in case you want to use it. And that's okay. But so normally you'll have at least two places where it comes up. If you have only one place where it comes up like this, and it's not a definition, it's being called, you need to go ding, ding, ding. Okay, this is somewhere. This is part of... It's not part of the code inside of this game. It's part of the code that is this bigger platform that we're using, right? And so I need to go check that. I need to learn what this is about. Right. And this colon kind of thing is very interesting. Me coming from other languages like C, C++, Python, JavaScript, this is interesting to me. Well, I guess no. This is just how it does method call. Yeah, I'm getting confused with something else. This is just a method call. So it's not. Never mind. It's not interesting. But you can't you also just do a dot? Isn't that fine as well? I don't know if there's a difference between the dot and the colon. Somebody let me know in the comments. But okay. That's basically enough talking about that take damage thing. It's at this point we're going to say it's straightforward. And what we need to do now is that we're not keeping track of kills in any way. So now, using my experience here, I'm going to type in died. So we have, let's see what we have. Why can't I move this up? This is so annoying. Let's just bring it out. Oh my goodness, there's all kinds of stuff. However, much of this is on these exploding barrels. It's interesting that these exploding barrels that you see in the game, they actually damage the terrain. So that's interesting and all, but just out of interest of cleaning this up a bit, I'm going to get rid of them for now. Okay, so now we only have died in a couple places, or a few. So in this shoulder camera is some stuff about died. And I'm looking at this, of course, because we want to count the number of kills in the game, right? Oh, so we had a robot spider. That's unrelated. So we have a game manager, player manager, and you can see it's connecting this. So the humanoid has a died function. So down here, right? Or is it an event? Okay. I did, when I was looking through the documentation, I wanted to talk about events, but I guess it'll have to be another day. If you haven't looked at the documentation for events, go check it out. But died, okay, is an event. One of the great things about these events are, those are all the things, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, those are all the things where you can sort of use this connect thing. And that's a very, coming from other languages, that's very interesting, this connect thing. And at first, when I started programming with Roblox, I was thinking, what, can you add this to any function? Any method, any function? But no, it seems you can only add it to events. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, so died is an event. You know, and it fires when the humanoid.health reaches 0, or disconnecting, blah, blah. Okay. All right. So let's maybe look at these different things. I think this is not important for our purposes, so let's get that out of the way and look at it first. All of this is in shoulder camera. So I'm gonna search here for died, and there's 5 matches. So, oh, okay. So this humanoid died. Event connections. I don't want to go too deep into the code here, but we can basically say that this is getting rid of the whole zoom thing when you die, right? Without going too much into the details of what event connections are and all this stuff, we can see that this has to do with zoom. So it ends, if you're in a sniper rifle, if you're looking down the scope of a sniper rifle and you get killed, it stops that zooming when you die. There's some others, and these are the only 3 other places. And I think this is just related to these event connections that it seems to be. Yeah, I don't really know what this is about, to be honest. But I'm gonna bet for now that this is not where we want to be looking. Okay. And can we go back to the searching? I have to do it again. Here it is. So I think what we want is in here. Or maybe there's nothing that we want. Maybe there's... So the first question is, were they trying to handle the kill count in some way? So let's look how this game actually works a bit. So you see these KOs. That's basically meant to be a kill. And WO, KO stands for knockout. But WO, is that supposed to be wipeout? That's how often you die, I guess. I don't know, you can test this, but it doesn't work correctly. I should also note that there's 2 game modes. There's like a team game mode, and there's a free-for-all game mode. I'll show you how to set that, but both of them don't work. Now I'd have to have another player to demonstrate that this doesn't work, but just take my word for it, or test it yourself. It doesn't keep track of kills correctly. But let's look in this script. We have 3 places where it talks about died. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And so this seems to be where maybe an attempt was made, or maybe this used to work, right? Now, one thing is, I was digging in here and I noticed that this spawn function is deprecated. However, I checked. Deprecated means that you're not supposed to use it anymore. However, I checked separately that it doesn't crash or anything. So, player points, yeah. My guess is that this used to work and just now it doesn't, and they never fixed it. So we're going to have to implement our own fix, our own system for keeping track of kills. But if somebody can figure out, like, is there an easy way to just fix this? For example, the problem might be on these lines, again, with having to do with spawn. So maybe somebody knows an easy fix here. That would be great if somebody could share that, because I have no idea about an easy fix. So, because I don't have an easy fix for it, I rolled my own solution, which is in large part copy pasting stuff that's out there. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. But let's see here. So now we're to the humanoid. We are connecting, or to the died event, we are connecting this anonymous function. That just means that the function here doesn't have a name. So we're just connecting this code that will run. So player manager, some class, and we're saying player died. So that's just calling the stuff that we were just looking at. That's right here. So it's going to call this. Okay. There's a respawn time, and then after the respawn time, after it waits for that amount of time, it loads the character. Okay. So nothing here is counting kills or anything, so presumably counting kills happens somewhere in here or in some function that's inside of here. Okay. Now I said I was going to show you how to set this up for team play. There's a main game script. Let's look at this. Okay, that's not it. There's a game manager. I think there's a, isn't there a configuration? Yeah, here there's configurations. And you have teams equals false. That's going to make it so that it's a free-for-all game. You can set, there's a bunch of things you can set here. Okay. Now, let's see here. I'm getting nervous. Like, I want to double check that this stuff doesn't work. I mean, I really think that it doesn't, or else why would I have bothered? Like, I spent like a whole day implementing this. But in order to check it, I need to load up the other computer and do a test. That's the easiest way. Or I make a public game and then ask someone to join. But I'm just going to continue assuming that it doesn't work because, yeah, I'm going to feel really stupid if somebody's like, no, I tested it, it works fine. Anyway, continuing on here. So now let's look at my solution again, in large part copy pasted. So I think a bunch of stuff is added here. This function already exists, but I modified it a bit. So let's see, that's actually right here. That's where the TakeDamage stuff is happening. So this is all that's going on here. And you note that I really think this doesn't work because player died player. Yeah, it has this hit array. Let's check this out. Hit array, player hit. It's getting set here. How is it keeping track of who? See, like, this is getting, so there's this function player hit. Oh wait, I need to check the whole thing. And it's only here. So this function, player, so it's being defined, but it's not being called anywhere, right? So this player being hit thing is being set up here. Maybe all I need to do is go into, where was it? Where's the TakeDamage function? It's in weapon system. Maybe I only need to go in here and add this, like, a player getting hit here. But let's see, maybe this player hit method is something that is part of the whole Roblox platform, similar to that TakeDamage function. So anyway, so we're setting, okay, but player manager here right now is just a local table. So it's being used like a class, even though they're not using the class keyword. You can make classes with the class keyword. Are classes just tables in Roblox? Somebody let me know. Okay, so player manager, player died, player. So what's going on here? Let's look at more of these matches. I don't know, it seems to me that this is never getting called. So this is the stuff we were just looking at. And this is, okay, this is requiring a player manager. But again, that function is not getting called. So it just seems to me that this player hit function is never getting called. Right? Am I wrong in thinking that? So I think that's the source of why it's not keeping track of any of this, these KOs. All right, so what we're gonna do, I'm going to just copy this in. And if all this works, I'll put it in the description of the video. I will probably test things out. We'll see. There'll be something in the description, so you don't have to type it all out yourself. All right, so in my new version here, and we don't need like all this printing stuff, but well, I'll get rid of it. But here's this TakeDamage thing, and we're also checking if humanoid. So I'm going to get rid of some of these comments and these print statements. Okay. Oh, and I don't need this either. This is extra unnecessary code. So, but it's good to mention this. There's this. So we're going to be implementing like this tag system. So basically the idea is that you tag, when you damage a player, you sort of tag them. And that the tag contains information of the player who did the damaging. And that's the idea. But this tag system already exists in Roblox. There's this collection service and add tags. And if you learn about, in the toolbox, there's these NPCs. Like if I check soldier. If you use the soldiers and the zombies, like the newer ones, these ones, they actually use tags. And so zombie, this one, which this one is buggy because when it dies, it actually, the died event gets called 3 times. But it looks nice anyway. But yeah, so if you add these in a game and then you add those soldiers, the soldiers will shoot the zombies and they won't shoot the player. And it makes use of the tag system that's built into Roblox. So that system exists and it's using this collection service class. And so you might want to implement it with that instead, but we're just using our own tag system that we're rolling ourselves. All right, so these are just print statements I was using when I was setting this stuff up and making sense of everything. Okay, and so we don't need any of that stuff. So the only difference from this one, which I'm going to get rid of now, is now we have these 2 functions getting called. So I'm going to get rid of that. And tag humanoid. So like I said, we're tagging and untagging. But before, we're not going to keep like adding tag after tag after tag after tag onto a humanoid. We're going to first remove all the tags when we're doing before we tag. Does that make sense? So that we only end up, in theory, we only end up with 1 tag per humanoid. And that tag will be the last humanoid that dealt damage. So we have a dealer. Notice we have a dealer, as in dealer of damage. And so first let's talk about, let's talk about tag first. So it takes a target and a dealer. The dealer of the damage and the target. Okay, so what happens there? So we have this thing, local variable called... So the fact that it's local means that it happens only within this function, within the scope of this function. You can't use creator tag out somewhere else right now. Okay. And so we're instantiating a new object of this class that's called this object value class. So again, with the documentation, let's just search for it. Object value. So there's this class called object value. An object value is an object whose purpose is to store a single reference to another object. So again, I'm thinking it's a pointer to another object, but yeah, reference, whatever. If this object is duplicated within Studio and the value refers to an object, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, it's good if you read through this. I'm not going to do it, but the idea is this doesn't have much stuff inside of it, to be honest. It has, for example, in their code sample, they set a name, a value, and a parent. And here in properties, I mean, you can see properties has a value and then all the stuff inherited from instance, which includes a name. There's a bunch of properties inherited from instance. Oh, maybe... Is this where they're selecting only certain properties to inherit? Somebody let me know. I think that must be the case. There's got to be more properties than this in instance, right? I think if I just go back here... let's just find instance. I just want to check this right now. Instance properties. Oh, there's not that many properties in instance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that it? But here we have more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What's going on? Somebody who knows more than me figure this out and explain it. I don't know. 2 of these are deprecated. That's probably it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are not deprecated. So if I go show deprecated, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's interesting. Okay. So archivable, I see this often, this whole archivable business, because it's often in the properties of objects. Like when you look at it in the workspace and all that. So this is deprecated, so we don't really... So, okay, I was wondering what that's all about, but since it's deprecated, don't need to think about it, I guess. And they have these class name strings. I mean, it's good to sometimes at least know about things that are deprecated sometimes, because you might see it in other people's code. So it doesn't come as a complete shock, or like you're with, you know, you might see this archivable stuff in someone's code. It's good to maybe not be completely confused about what it is. At least just know that, oh, that's something deprecated. Oh, I can look that up, whatever. It's better than not knowing it. But anyway, we don't want to spend too much time studying deprecated stuff. Oh, we do have this archivable. It's just uppercase. What? I mean, they just changed it to uppercase. Oh. All right, but this is from instance. Okay. So forget everything I just said. We need to know about it. It's just uppercase now. Okay, whatever. So, okay, this is not surprising. Every instance, every object, every instance of an instance has a string attached to it, which is its name. Good. It also has a parent that belongs to something. Is the top object the workspace, or does the workspace have a parent? I don't know. Roblox locked a deprecated property that used to protect core GUI objects. Okay. What? It doesn't say deprecated on it, but it says it's a deprecated property. That's interesting. So I have no idea what that's about, to be honest. But later I'll learn about core GUI and see what that's about. And the archivable thing. I honestly don't really understand this, so I better check it out later. Okay. But that's stuff that all instances, all objects basically have. Other than that, we have a value. Methods and this is inherited from instance. So every instance can have tags added to them. Clear all children. You can clone them. You can destroy them. There's actually quite a bit of things. Get tags. So it's, as you progress, it's good to actually know at least a little about every single thing in here. But anyway, this is true for all instances. Nothing new here. Then we have events, which I talked about briefly without really explaining much. But my understanding is that under the hood, they're referring it to this. The RBX script signal data type, more commonly known as an event, provides a way for user-defined functions called listeners to call when something happens in the game. So you'll see that there's there's 4 methods and no new properties. No properties. Right? So this is what an event is all about. This is very important to know, right? And there's not that much stuff. So we've wait. Once, I don't know. I'll read this more in detail later. I've already glanced over it before, but this connect thing you see used all the time, right? That's very interesting. It's very interesting stuff. Okay. So an event is something that doesn't have that much new stuff added to it, really. There's only these 4 methods that make it kind of special, okay? And the main one, I think, is connect. Okay. All right, so I was going to learn more about that later on my own. And, okay, so this object value has an event that attached to it when the value is changed. So that could be useful. It talks about it here. We have a code sample. So there's really not much going on here. There's almost so little that I'm almost confused why this exists, but whatever. It's literally just a value, basically, plus all of the other things that all instances have. And it also has this event when the value is changed. That's really it. A value and a changed event. Okay. So that's going to be useful sometimes. I guess the difference is, like, if you used a table or something, a table doesn't come equipped automatically with some kind of event, changed event, does it? I don't think so, but let me see. Table. So table is another really super important thing to learn about. And okay, so that's interesting. So this is going to be in libraries. You're going to find this in libraries. And tables are basically, there's 3 words that are floated around that are related to sort of the containers in with Roblox development. Containers, I just mean sort of the basic data structures that we use to contain information in the language. And those 3 words are dictionaries, arrays, and tables. But apparently dictionaries and arrays are kinds of tables. So it's really just there's tables. And when people talk about, arrays and dictionaries are types of tables. So there are things you can do with arrays that you can't do with dictionaries and vice versa. So it might be important to know whether your table is if it's an array, if it's a dictionary, or if it's just some mixed thing. But tables are very sort of, if you have any experience with JavaScript, they're like, to me, they're just like objects. You can put all kinds of things inside of tables. In the old days in programming, decades ago, there were just specific types that correspond to, let me make sure I'm still recording here. Not talking to nothing. Okay. There were certain types, like you have the int and boolean and stuff like this. Int is a kind of like an integer. And these types corresponded very much to how things are stored on the computer in memory or storage. Well, they're stored in bytes, aren't they? Bytes are just 8 bits. So a bit is a 1 or a 0, and if you have 8 of them, how many different values can you describe? You can describe 256 different values, because 2 to the 8th power is 256. And usually we think of that as ranging from 0 to 255. So for example, ASCII, which is like the old school way of representing text, ASCII, can I bring up Ubuntu here? I don't want to. Anyway, you know what? I can bring it up here. So let's do. You can get this manual page for ASCII. It's kind of old school stuff I'm doing here, but I'm sorry, it's so bright, isn't it? This is like the old school way of doing text. And every character is stored in a byte. So, you know, for example, like you can use Japanese text in a terminal now, but that is using more than 1 byte per character. In the old days, even if you're in Japan or China, you had to, basically, computing was done in English, more or less, or at least with these limited amount of characters. So here's the letters over here. And each number corresponds to, these decimal numbers are numbers, the way you and I normally think of them. Oct, this is for octal, it's base 8, hex is base 16. And char is referring to the character itself. Okay. I forget even what I was talking about. I got so sidetracked. What was I talking about? Tables. So you had these types that were very much connected to how information is stored in bytes. But later, as computers became more powerful, you sometimes just wanted, so like it's sort of natural that you'd want this sort of generic object where you can just, it contains data, but you can just shove things in, all kinds of different things in there. Like you could shove in booleans. Then arrays are kind of sort of obvious. Like after you have, say, numbers, you want arrays of numbers, lots of numbers. In an object. Oh, I'm being a little loose with the language here. But basically, at some point, you want an object where you can just shove a bunch of different things in there. Strings, booleans, arrays, ints, whatever. And then somebody maybe had the clever idea, well, you can also shove in functions, which really you're just shoving a pointer. You're just putting a pointer to the function in there. And before there were functions, there were goto statements, which are, you'd have a label. So somewhere in the code would be a label. But this whole sort of paradigm, this way of thinking, was replaced with functions. The problem with gotos is just that the code becomes this tangled spaghetti mess of gotos. And so the execution of the code would literally just jump to a different place in the code. which is basically what happens with functions anyway. But the difference is that after a function is called, assuming that the program doesn't like crash or get stuck in that function forever, you're guaranteed that after the function is done being called, that you continue to the next line where you were. So like after the untagged humanoid function is called, I'm guaranteed that next we're going to go here. Whereas with goto statements, it's much more ambiguous. Like anything could happen after that. There's no guarantee that you'll ever get back. I mean, I guess that's similar to like having a function where you just get caught in a loop or something, but yeah. Anyway, the whole goto thing was replaced basically with functions. There's very limited maybe low-level programming stuff where a goto function is thought to be maybe, it's still maybe controversial, but there's an argument for maybe using it in a very specific, very, very specific low-level cases, I think. But we just use functions now. So you'd want this object where you can put a function in there, which is really just a pointer. I mean, these functions are basically, under the hood, they're basically goto statements. There's some code in your program, and it's actually on the assembly level, it's called I think it's called a jump statement, and it just jumps somewhere else in the code. But it will, there's like a call stack, and it keeps track of how to get back after that code is executed, and then it comes back. But I just don't want you to think that when you attach a function to a table or some kind of data structure of some kind, that you're taking all of that code and information and putting it in the table. So it's like it would be entirely everything inside would be copied into the table. That would be extremely inefficient. We're just placing a pointer to the function. It's just a pointer is just an address in memory space, for example. Anyway, so it's very natural that you want this thing where you can contain all kinds of, it's like just a bag where you can just shove all kinds of things in the bag. And my first exposure with this kind of thing was with JavaScript, where you have objects. But here we have tables, and you can just shove all kinds of things in there. It turns out that apparently table, it's working as if there's a kind of like it's a class, even though it's a library here. And the reason I say that is it has these built-in functions. But table, it's probably this is probably more inherent to Lua. I'm not clear on all the. I didn't know Lua before I started doing Roblox, so I'm not clear on what's Lua and what's Luau or whatever. What's the newer stuff? But anyway, so it has these functions built in. So it's acting almost like a class with methods. So here are these declarations, and now we have these definitions of these functions. And that's it. Okay. And similar kind of thing for string. We have a bunch of functions, like there's probably sort. No, there's no sort. There's split. That's nice. Anyway. Going back. So another thing you need to learn is tables. So we have this object value, which we're instantiating here. Now, the name isn't not important here. Is it ever being used? We do use it later. I'll show you that. Because this is not enough. Here we're just tagging, but we're not doing anything to count the kills, are we? So we're just tagging. So debris you'll notice it's being underlined, and that's because I'm not including, so it's unknown global, it's saying. And that is because over here, debris, I need this. It's conventional. I think I probably could just put it here, I'm guessing. And in a way, I'm not too opposed to this style, but I'm just gonna do what's already been done in this file, which is to put it up here. Let's see, where is it? The get services are up here. Okay. So I'm gonna put it here. So this debris is a service. The idea is like, this is for things that you want to be, that you create for a little bit and then they're destroyed quickly after. But you can look up in the documentation about that more if you want. And tagging. So where's tagging? And yeah, I think this needs to be divided into parts. So this is going to be part 1. And there may be modifications to this, so check in the description if whatever's in the description is going to be like the final version of the stuff. But, yeah, it's getting a bit long here. I'm getting a bit tired. And so I might leave it at that for now. I do want to check that when you add code like this, it's good to check that nothing crashes, right? But all we're doing here, I don't see anything that's going to crash, but it's always good to check. So we'll have a little check that nothing crashes. And I want to say that I want to describe the next steps, which, if you're clever, will be enough to get the rest of it. But so if I search here, I'm going to search here in my main project for died. Oh, we have all these exploding barrels things. Let's bring this out. But somewhere, actually, I think I know where it is. Has died, is that it? Yes. So what I'm doing is I'm using leader stats, which I'm persisting through this data server stuff. So, but that would be a separate tutorial about persisting data and having a sort of a database in air quotes. Here's my data store stuff. But so we have this onDied function. Yeah, it's going to have to be in a part 2, or there might even be 3 parts here. But let's say that in the humanoid, we're just checking for these tags. And again, I don't need this stuff. Don't need this stuff. And I'm iterating through all the players in the game, and when the player of the game matches this value from the tag, then I add to the number of kills. But what I do need to do is check so that when the person erases themselves, what's the lingo that they use? When there's a self-deletion, I don't want to add to their kills. That's one of the bugs that I want to fix. So that should be an easy fix, though. Something. This is just gonna be pseudocode, but and not somewhere there's a name. So maybe player.name equals v.value. This is probably something like this is going to be a good enough fix, but and not. Oh, it doesn't like my syntax. So it wants me to replace it with. a more Robloxian syntax. Is that a tilde? Okay, so we're saying and the player name is not equal to that, then this. So I'm going to test this. This might actually be good enough, but we'll see. And so here we're checking, yeah, if the tag, well, we're iterating through all the players in the game, and when we have that the value from the tag matches the player's name, we increase the number of kills for the player that's being stored in this leader stats thing. So there'll have to be more parts. And I know that this is sort of, I don't know if impromptu, but it's very long. I understand. So, but this will give me sort of a template. I can see there's all kinds of things I could make videos about, like object value, tables, but I do need to improve my skills, my knowledge a bit, before I can make good tutorial content, really. So I'll be working on it. Like, for example, the model stuff, I was confused about some of this basic stuff. I've only been doing this for a month and a half, so there's a ton of stuff to learn. So when I don't have the skills to make like a really good tutorial, I'm going to do this kind of sort of almost like a stream of consciousness, but just kind of going through things. And partly this helps me build my skills. But comments help, so leave a comment. Let me know what you think, if you have any 2 cents, if you have anything to add. See, this is where I was testing this spawn thing to see if it just crashes, which of course is not going to crash because we already saw that spawn function being used. But I just want to see if, like, oh yeah, if this would even print, which I'm pretty sure it did print. So I left this here because spawn is deprecated, so when something's deprecated, they might bit by bit make it worse and worse to use that thing, to the point where your program might crash if you use that thing, potentially. So this is here as a reminder, like occasionally test that, because it's still being... Is it still being used? I don't know. Spawn. Oh, it's... I'm not sure if it's actually being used in these ones. I might have... Yeah. Let's see here. So yeah, I haven't removed this code. I did change this. Wait, what? Oh no, I was trying to fix this stuff, I think. Update player score, hitting player. There's something I was going to test, just that it doesn't crash. Let's just see if I do this. It should... Oh, I need to wait for the force field to go. It should run through some of that code. And I just want to make sure it doesn't crash. Yeah, good. Oh, I should have run with the output in case there's like an error or warning. I'll do that later. And let's see here. This update player score in the player manager. Oh, it is here. Yeah, I don't know. I'll test everything. Let me know if you have any comments. Thanks.